We actually have next week our first ever AI workshop, a 2-day workshop that's really focused on helping technology and engineering teachers leverage AI to get their time back. So the really positive thing we're seeing in education is that AI can be used to do some of the more routine and mundane tasks that teachers have to do. You know, we're all so used to thinking of a teacher being in the classroom in front of the students, but we don't see what they're doing in their planning hours, in their after school hours, on their weekends, before school. And some of that can be done or at least supported through AI.
This is Associations Thrive, the podcast celebrating successful associations and their leaders. I'm your host, Joanna Pineda, CEO and Chief Troublemaker at Matrix Group International. Listen in as top association executives tell all, revealing the creative and innovative ways they're increasing membership, generating revenue, nurturing engagement, and reimagining their organizations. By the way, if you've launched a new initiative, created new member services, or updated your governance structure and are seeing great results, I want to hear your story, and so do my listeners. I'd love to have you as a guest. Go to podcast.matrixgroup.net and apply to be on Associations Thrive. Now let's dive into this week's show. Today, I'm speaking with Kelly Dooley, Executive Director, CEO of the International Technology and Engineering Educators Association, or ITEEA. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joanna. I'm so happy to be here.
Kelly, tell us about ITEEA. And that's a mouthful, by the way.
It is a mouthful. We are the professional association for technology and engineering educators, including supporting all educators in using technology and engineering to bring STEM to life.
Okay, so these are STEM educators in K-12 or K-college environments, and they're the ones who are actually teaching the STEM classes.
Right. So the majority of our members are those K-12 educators. And in the earlier elementary years, they tend to be more STEM focused. And then as we advance to middle school and high school, they're teaching technology and engineering elective courses.
So give us examples of some of these courses.
So Foundations of Technology and Engineering is our 9th grade course. We also have a middle school course called Inventions and Innovations. So again, a lot of these courses are offered as electives in middle schools and high schools. Think what used to be shop courses, shop class.
Oh, interesting. Well, I'm looking forward to diving into that, but I got another question for you. Over the years, the association has changed names. So what's the origin story and why the name changes?
So the organization was started in 1939. We were known as the American Industrial Arts Association, and we were supporting the study of industrial arts in schools. But then as industrial arts evolved into technology and engineering, our focus has shifted too. So as we've moved, the changing nature of the industrial world has evolved. And it's with that, technology and engineering have emerged as prime areas of education, prime areas of teaching and learning. And the STEM education movement has evolved through that. So we evolved from the American Industrial Arts Association to the International Technology Education Association, and then the International Technology and Engineering Educators Association over many decades.
Now, on the website, you all talk about redefining technology and engineering. What does that mean? I mean, I think most of us feel like, I know what engineering and technology are, but what does it mean to the association and to the profession?
Our definition of technology is the modification of the natural environment through human designed products, systems, and processes. So anything we as humans are modifying in the natural environment is a technology. Years ago, a table was a technology. We took wood, a natural product, and were able to create something new, a newly designed product that had a use. To us, engineering is using science and math to optimize those technologies. So when we think about the first table to tables today and how they've been improved in terms of material, and some collapse and fold, and some are able to be heightened or lowered or expanded. And so technology is really that modification of natural resources through human work. And then engineering is optimizing that technology to meet needs, and those needs evolve.
Oh my God, I love this so much. My older son just graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering, and I'm going to share these definitions. He's going to love it.
Yeah, that's great. And one of the things I also wanted to note is our focus is on technological and engineering literacy. So we believe that every single student needs to know and be able to do things as it relates to technology and engineering. They need to understand and have certain competencies in those subject areas, regardless of if they go on, like your son, to be an engineer, because we are operating in a technological world today. And it doesn't matter if your job or career is in engineering, you are still going to need a certain engineering mindset to be able to perform in any capacity as any contributor to society, thinking through design, optimization. How can we do things better? How can we satisfy those wants and needs based on the criteria we're working within?
Well, we clearly have a lot to talk about when it comes to ITEEA, but let's turn to your journey. So how do you get to become executive director of this organization?
Joanna, that's a great question. I actually, like your son, studied engineering in undergrad, and I graduated in 2008, right before the recession hit.
Oof.
Yep. Anyone who hears that 2008 year, they know what's coming next. I was lucky to have had some internships and have a job in engineering and structural engineering specifically when I graduated. And I kept that job through the recession. So I was very lucky. I had lots of friends and colleagues who did not have that same fortunate outcome. But the recession still really impacted my early career because there weren't a lot of new and exciting engineering projects to work on. Especially as a structural engineer, we weren't designing and building new structures because there was no funding to do so. We did a lot of mundane work just to keep the organization afloat. I also was primarily doing independent desk work. There wasn't a lot of collaboration. There weren't tons of meetings, no travel opportunities, and we weren't hiring. So I entered the workforce and no one really entered below me or in the years that came. So I was working in a largely male-dominated industry, and most of my colleagues were mid or late career. And so I really didn't have a sense of belonging as much in the company I was working for and the profession at large. There weren't early career women in engineering practice at that time in the same way that we might see it now, 18 years later. So I was relieved to have a job and keep a job over that recession period, but I didn't feel fulfilled. And so when the economy finally stabilized, I had maybe what one would call a quarter life crisis of, I can't imagine doing this for the next 30 plus years. So what do I do about that? And I really felt a pull to try something different. And I was in my 20s still and at a point in my life that I felt now's the time. And I can look back on that and say that there were plenty of other times that that could have happened, that I could have made that transition or made that leap. But I felt a certain sense of urgency to try something new. And That's what led me to association management. I applied to so many jobs, Joanna. I mean, I was not focused on association management. I didn't even know what association management was as a profession.
So how'd you find this job in association management? Because people stumble into associations all the time.
I stumbled. I looked for any job. I scoured LinkedIn and job boards and my network that I had for any job that I felt my engineering background would give me a little bit of an edge, because I kind of felt like I'm starting over, right? Like I'm going to leave engineering practice that I've been doing for 5 years that my undergrad degree is in, and I'm going to start over in a new field. I didn't want to go to another engineering company. I wanted to do something new. And I had to think about what gave me that leg up as a candidate entering at 27 instead of 22, and what might make me stand out. And so I had to find a way to leverage my education expertise to that point. And so my first association role was with the American Society of Civil Engineers because of my engineering background.
Perfect for you.
Yeah, it was great. And as much as I do, that when you enter the association, if you do so intentionally or semi-intentionally, there's kind of two paths. One is through the profession you're serving. That's not an uncommon path. And the other is through experience in managing associations. And so I was fortunate that I didn't have the latter, but the former made me stand out as a candidate at ASCE. And I made that leap in 2013.
Wow. Okay, so now you're at ITEEA, another tech engineering organization, and you're the ED. So how did that happen?
That was, I guess, a journey from 2013 until 2021 when I joined ITEEA. I really first just fell in love with association work. I loved the collaborative nature. I enjoyed working on diverse teams. We had a large staff at ASC. It was about 250 people. I really enjoyed engaging with volunteers and feeling like day to day I was making their passion come to life or carrying it forward. They were only able to give hours in a month, and I was giving my whole days to really realize their visions, the boards, the committees I worked with. And that to me felt rewarding. And I really did feel committed and connected to the mission of ASCE because it was a profession I served. So the first thing was realizing this is for me. Association management is for me. And once I decided that, I really sought the growth and advancement opportunities within ASC to move into new positions, to learn new things, to collect mentors and soak up everything they could share with me. Ultimately, towards the final years at ASCE, they supported my pursuit of a master's in management with a specialization in nonprofits and associations. And I was working towards my CIE through ASAE. And so I grew a lot and I gained a lot of skills and knowledge.
So you went looking and ITEEA fell in your lap. So how did that happen?
I guess it kind of fell in my lap. I have an unusual story in that I cold applied to the executive director CEO job through a LinkedIn job post. And obviously I got it. And I had applied to a lot of positions. I had turned down some job opportunities. I had not gotten some opportunities I really wanted. But I think through that time, I really explored a few different what's next for me ideas. One was to pursue a change within ASCE. One was, am I desperate enough to do like a lateral move, not moving up, but going to another association that is along the same lines in terms of where I'm at? One was to go maybe more of a consulting path. And the last, but it felt like the one that was going to be the most challenging, was to take the leap into executive management. And through my searching and lots of conversations with mentors and lots of self-reflection, I really settled that I didn't want to leave unless it was that fourth option. I wanted that executive jump. And that's a hard place to be in. I think anyone listening to this who is there now or has been there, when you have no executive experience and you want to break into executive management, every job you see, they want 5 plus, 10 plus, 15 plus years of executive experience. And so to even get the chance to interview, to even get your resume passed on to the next step to be considered, that was the greatest barrier. I had a lot of confidence that once I got interviewed and once I was being considered, that my skills and my passion and my potential would shine through. But getting there was a really tough glass ceiling to break through.
But somehow the board of ITEEA made the decision. What do you think was the critical factor in them hiring you, despite you not having previously chief staff exec experience?
Yeah, so ITEEA is a much smaller association than ASCE was, and then some of the other associations I'd been applying to. So with that, part of it was the makeup of the organization. They obviously took a chance on me, and with that, I took a chance on them because they weren't in the best, the healthiest financial and strategic position, especially coming out of COVID. And I think they had always had an executive director from the profession, so a retired educator who was from their community and had a lot of passion and relationships, but maybe didn't have the business acumen or the association management expertise to really evaluate how we could do things differently. They had only experienced ITEEA, both as volunteer leaders and now as executive leaders. None of their executive officers had ever worked at another association. I did bring association management experience, and they were lacking that.
Yeah.
I think the board and the search committee that had been formed knew that that was something they needed based on where the association was and the rebuilding that needed to happen in that post-COVID time.
Well, let's turn to ITEEA because it sounds like you've made a huge impact over there. So let's start with, I guess, your standards and your curriculum, because you talked about that before and how that's hugely important to the organization. And I understand that it brings in quite a bit of non-dues revenue. So tell our listeners about that.
I know everyone loves to hear about non-dues revenue.
Right.
We all can't read enough and learn enough about it because we know post-COVID that events and memberships, I mean, those are areas that already generationally were being affected by just changes across society. But I think COVID exacerbated a lot of that. We're really fortunate that through the evolution that I explained at the start, we really realized early on in the 90s that there was a need for standards around technology education, that was a gap in education. And so we published the standards for technological literacy, outlining, what do students need to know and be able to do to be technologically literate. And again, we're talking about every student, not just the ones who want to pursue STEM careers. Every single student is living in this world with technology. And at that time, technologies looked a little different than they do today. But at that time, there was still a need for technological literacy. And so we first published the standards, and then we determined that there was no solution for educators to achieve those standards. They weren't equipped to do so. And with that, we launched our curriculum, Engineering by Design. It's a pre-K through 12 integrative STEM curriculum. It uses science and math to showcase technology and engineering and how students can engage in project-based learning and critical thinking to develop this technological literacy. And that evolved over the years. Now our standards are the standards for technological and engineering literacy. They were revised in 2020 to bring engineering education in more prominently. And our curriculum, every course is reviewed and revised or reaffirmed on a 3-year cycle. So since its original creation, the courseware that we offer has also evolved a lot. So we have 2 models for accessing our curriculum. One is We partner with 11 different states to bring our curriculum statewide. And so the state Department of Ed typically pays us for statewide access to the curriculum so every single educator can use it. And in a lot of those states, their state standards are aligned to our STEL, Standards for Technological and Engineering Literacy. And then we also offer a model where individual teachers, schools, or districts can simply purchase the curriculum directly through us. And with that, over 40% of our revenue is associated with state consortiums, curriculum sales, and then related trainings that we deliver to the teachers that are using our curriculum.
Kelly, how does an association get an entire state to adopt their curriculum? Like, what kind of effort is involved in that?
Yes, it's a lot of effort. We have a couple states that we've been exploring that with, and it's years. This is not something that happens over months. More than the money, it takes advocates at the state level. So we've seen success working in partnership with teacher preparation programs. So with universities that are preparing the teachers. And if they endorse our curriculum, this is the curriculum that we're preparing our teachers to use when they graduate. This is what they're familiar with. This is what they graduate ready to put into place. The state, because of the teacher shortage especially, wants to keep those teachers there. So in order to keep those teachers in that state, the opinions and the expertise from those teacher prep programs carries a lot of weight. So in a lot of states, we have a partner university that has a technology education degree program, and that's one really successful tactic. But also you need people at that state Department of Ed, at that state agency that are gonna go to bat for you and continue going to bat for you, because it's not a one-off conversation. It's not 3 conversations. It's a recurring conversation.
Well, speaking of teacher shortage, I imagine that we don't have enough STEM and engineering teachers. What do we do about this? Because if we want everybody to be STEM literate, but we don't have enough teachers, what's your role in this? Do you have a role in this?
We do have a role in it. I wish I had the answer to your question. We all know that there's a national teacher shortage, and you're right, STEM and technology and engineering are high need critical subject areas that we're seeing that shortage in. We don't have a strong public policy and advocacy program within ITEEA because we are so small and we're somewhat resource constrained. But we've had a lot of success through partnerships, specifically with the Association for Career and Technical Education and some other national and international organizations that do have public policy and advocacy teams in really amplifying their work at the national or federal level and at the state level. We lean on those partnerships and we try to engage our members in their robust efforts around advocacy. And then we recently adopted a new strategic plan, and our 4th goal, which was the goal that really introduced the most new strategies and activities beyond things we were already doing, was around recruitment and retention. And so there's a lot to be done with the pre-service teachers, like I mentioned, at those teacher preparation programs, keeping them in the profession by connecting them with professional associations early, with mentorship opportunities. Because unfortunately, a lot of educators that are studying in technical subject areas graduate and end up never entering the teaching profession. They get scooped up by the Googles, they get scooped up by their Microsofts to train as well, because those companies are also looking to fill openings and they can pay a lot more than our teacher salaries.
So they're still teaching, but not in schools. They're teaching in industry.
Yeah, they might be in more of a learning or training department within a larger company, or they might just be brought into those companies, and those companies are training them up with the gaps in their skills. Because when you're in an education degree program, yes, you need to learn how to teach, but you're also learning those subject areas. You also need to become, to some degree, an expert enough in those subject areas to teach them to students. So a technology teacher has a lot of hands-on learning experience in the technologies we're using today, in microbits and coding and robotics. All of those are part of their teacher preparation program. And so these technical companies see that as they have the foundation that we can really build on.
Wow.
And they can pay a lot more.
Well, I think about at my son's high school, he just finished freshman year and he took auto shop and he took electronics, both hands-on. And interestingly, both teachers are retired from the profession because they were making a lot of money in the professions. And now that they're done, they're teaching.
We see that a lot. And it's a little bit of a push-pull within the profession because we need more teachers. So of course we want to embrace what we call career changers into education. And we need them to have the skills to be effective teachers, which isn't second nature. Just like any other profession, they need the appropriate education and training to understand pedagogy and
right.
to understand how to engage all learners and to implement curriculum and create effective lesson plans. It's an art, it's a science, and it's an art, and it's a craft. So there's a lot that goes into that alternative certification model, and finding the right balance of facilitating that as a pathway entry into the profession through that career changing, but also making sure they're equipped to be a good teacher. Because I think anyone who's gone through an education system knows what an impact the teacher has on the student. And we all remember the teachers that stood out to us because they changed our lives and they were amazing and they were impactful beyond probably just the classroom. And then we all remember those teachers that were the opposite.
Right. Absolutely.
And so we want to make sure our teachers are equipped to have a positive impact on all of the students' lives.
Kelly, we can't have a podcast about STEM and engineering without at least touching on AI. So I'm sure this is something you talk a lot about, but I don't know a lot about this. I'm going to ask you, how is AI changing the teaching of technology and engineering? And what's the effect on the association?
We actually have next week our first ever AI workshop, a 2-day workshop that's really focused on helping technology and engineering teachers leverage AI to get their time back.
Oh.
So the really positive thing we're seeing in education is that AI can be used to do some of the more routine and mundane tasks that teachers have to do. We're all so used to thinking of a teacher being in the classroom in front of the students, but we don't see what they're doing in their planning hours, in their after school hours, on their weekends, before school. And some of that can be done or at least supported through AI. So we're trying to help teachers use AI effectively to get some of their time back so it can be focused on the student's learning experience and being present in the classroom. They're also facing the struggle, on the other hand, with how students use AI in their classrooms. And that's especially in these technology and engineering, that comes up a lot. And that's a greater challenge because AI policies do exist, don't exist, and differ across schools, districts, and states. And so our teachers are working in a lot of different environments in terms of what is or isn't allowed, what their school district or state believes the role of AI in education should or shouldn't be. And so we are working on establishing some best practices to perhaps guide some of those policies. And we recently just joined with the Computer Science Teachers Association, CSTA, and a handful of other education associations on an AI collaborative that is going to define what AI literacy looks like at large and within some of these more technical subject areas. So I actually believe their conference was just this week and they were announcing that partnership. So to date, we have just been working on some of the MOUs and what that work will look like, but we're excited in the fall to hit the ground running on that AI collaborative and work in conjunction with some of these other education associations to better define that.
Well, for sure, it's changing quickly, and there's a lot of moving parts. Kelly, before we go, I got a question for you. So it's July 2026 when we do this interview. You're halfway through the year. What are you looking forward to for the rest of the year?
That's a great question. So for us, summer is actually in between the year.
Oh, that's true.
Our fiscal year, but also the school year. This is a really exciting time for us because we're looking forward to the school year ahead. And with that, what can we do and how can we better support teachers moving forward? So we've really invested recently in some more asynchronous trainings, and we're excited to offer those to teachers so that they can do some learning and gain new skills and knowledge on their own time, recognizing some of the challenges with their schedules. We also just launched our Career Connections website, which helped hopefully this summer to connect some of the schools that have position openings with the teachers that are looking maybe for a change. And our annual conference is every spring. So we're looking ahead to spring 2027 when we'll be in Louisville, Kentucky, and bring together about 800 educators to have these conversations and to continue looking at the future of technology and engineering. So those are just a few things that are, I guess, on our radar for this summer and the year to come.
Just a few.
Just a few.
Well, Kelly, this has been an absolute pleasure. I hope you'll come back and tell us about all the new and exciting things, because I know that the industry, the profession, all of that is changing with AI and all the other things that are happening. So thank you for being on the podcast today.
Yes, thank you so much, Joanna, for having me. And I'd love to continue the conversation. We had some good chats before we even hit record. So just love learning and connecting with others in this space and appreciate all you're doing to make that happen.
Thanks for listening to Associations Thrive. We're so glad to have you here. You know, my personal mission and the mission of my company, Matrix Group International, is to help associations and nonprofits increase membership, generate revenue, and thrive in the digital space. I want to hear stories of how your organization is thriving in today's challenging landscape. Please apply to be on my show by going to podcast.matrixgroup.net. By the way, do you need help with a digital initiative? Maybe it's a website redesign, a new membership database, or a hybrid meeting that you're planning. I'd love to connect with you. Please visit the Matrix Group website at matrixgroup.net. Thanks again for listening to this week's episode of Associations Thrive. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a 5-star rating, post a comment, and share it with your colleagues and friends.